Welcome back. This channel exists because of your support. Subscribe, hit like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's get into the story. Belle's text arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in July. Passed. Licensed architect. Come home early. I read it 3 times standing in the construction site dirt, cement dust coating my work boots. We'd been married for 9 years total. The first 4 were good, back when we were building something together. Then came 5 years of architecture school. 5 years of me working 2 jobs so she could focus. 5 years of promising ourselves this moment would make everything worth it. I left the site at 4:15, stopping at the corner market on Davis Square for champagne and yellow roses, her favorite since our second date. The bottle cost $43, more than I usually spent, but this was the moment we'd been building toward. The July heat pressed against my shirt as I walked the 3 blocks to our Somerville apartment, sweat gathering at my collar. I remember checking my watch at the door, 5:23 p.m. Some timestamps you never forget. The ones that split your life into before and after. She was already drinking when I came in. Not the champagne I'd imagined we'd share, but wine from a bottle I didn't recognize. Expensive. The kind with a label in French that probably cost more than our weekly grocery budget. She wore a new suit, charcoal gray with sharp lines that made her look like someone I'd seen in magazine advertisements. And jewelry I'd never seen before. A thin gold bracelet that caught the afternoon light streaming through our kitchen window. Pearl earrings that probably cost more than my monthly take from the construction job. Expensive pieces that caught the light wrong, like they belonged to someone else's life, someone else's wife. Congratulations, I said, holding out the flowers. Belle took them without looking at me. Set them on the counter next to a manila envelope. Thick cardstock, the kind lawyers use. We need to talk, Tom. From the back bedroom, I could hear her father's oxygen machine, the steady mechanical breath that had become the rhythm of our life. Edmund Montgomery, 72 years old, late-stage Parkinson's. He'd been living with us for 3 years. I'd gotten him up that morning at 6:30, administered his medications, helped him through his physical therapy exercises before leaving for work. Belle picked up the envelope. I've been thinking about this for a while. About what I need going forward. She handed it to me. I opened it standing there in our kitchen, still holding the champagne, and saw the words dissolution of marriage across the top of page 1. I need to start my real life now, Belle said. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. You were exactly what I needed then. But I'm ready to build my own career now. I need to focus on my trajectory. I looked at her. Really looked. The makeup was different, more polished. Her hair styled in a way that probably cost what we used to spend on groceries. Everything about her had been upgraded, sharpened, prepared for a world that didn't include me. Your trajectory, I repeated. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She refilled her wine glass. You're a good man, Tom. Really. But I need someone who can keep up with where I'm going. You're not an architect. You're not even ambitious. I thought about the 2 jobs I'd worked for 5 years. The project coordinator position at the civil engineering firm that paid our rent, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And the weekend construction gigs that paid her tuition, 6 a.m. to whenever the foreman said we were done, my hands raw from handling lumber and concrete, my back aching from lifting materials up scaffolding. $127,000 total. That's what the Boston Architectural College cost over 5 years. I'd paid every cent. Every semester's tuition. Every materials fee. Every textbook that cost $300 and would be obsolete in a year. I thought about Edmund in the next room, the mechanical wheeze of his oxygen concentrator providing a rhythm to our lives like a metronome we couldn't escape. How I'd modified our apartment when his hands started shaking too badly to grip doorknobs. Installing lever handles on every door, buying a shower chair, moving furniture to create clear paths for his wheelchair. How I'd scheduled all his medical appointments around my lunch breaks, sitting in waiting rooms with my work laptop, trying to finish reports while neurologists explained medication adjustments. How I'd researched his medications until I understood the drug interactions better than some of his doctors. How I'd learned to cook the soft foods he could still swallow when the Parkinson's made eating difficult. Pureed soups, mashed vegetables, proteins ground so fine they wouldn't make him choke. How I'd sat with him through the worst nights, when his body would freeze and he couldn't move, terror in his eyes, and I'd talk him through the paralysis until his medications kicked in. I thought about the job offer from Minneapolis. 3 years ago, Larson Structural Engineering. They'd wanted me to head their residential division. $58,000 a year, up from the $42 I was making. Real career advancement. An actual future. I turned it down in a 15-minute phone call because Belle was in the middle of her thesis semester and couldn't transfer. The program director had said, "Are you sure? This opportunity won't come again." I'd said yes. I was sure my wife's education was more important. "Edmund's getting worse anyway," Belle continued. "Maybe it's time for a facility. Somewhere with professional care." That's when I understood. Not the divorce. I'd probably known that was coming in some half-conscious way. But this. The casual dismissal of her own father. The man I'd bathed and fed and sat with through the worst nights. She wanted him gone too. We were both load-bearing walls she didn't need anymore. I found a pen in the kitchen drawer. Signed every page where the little yellow tabs indicated. My handwriting looked strange, like someone else was holding the pen. "I'll be out tonight," I said. "I need to make some calls first." I went to our bedroom, past the photos on the wall that showed us younger, smiling at a beach in Cape Cod, at her graduation from undergrad, at our tiny city hall wedding where we'd promised each other forever with $20 rings. Packed a single backpack with clothes and my laptop. Grabbed my father's old compass from the dresser, the brass surface worn smooth from his hands, and then mine, the only thing I owned that mattered. The only thing that had been mine before Belle. Then I returned to the living room and called Edmund's sister, Claire, in Providence. Explained the situation in sentences that felt like they were happening to someone else, my voice flat and distant like I was reading from a script. Claire arrived 3 hours later, her face tight with anger that wasn't directed at me. Her eyes were red. She'd loved her brother. She'd watched me care for him, while his own daughter visited less and less. Belle had retreated to the bedroom by then, door closed, probably on the phone with whoever she'd bought that jewelry for, whoever was waiting in the life she'd already started building without me. I helped Claire get Edmund into her car. He was having a good day, relatively speaking. His hands shook, but his mind was clear. He held my hand with his trembling grip, his fingers cold and thin like bird bones, and said, "You're a good boy, Thomas. Better than she deserved. I'm sorry. I'm sorry she did this to you." I couldn't speak. Just squeezed his hand gently. "You'll be okay," he said. "You're the kind of man who lands on his feet. She'll fall. People like her always do. They forget who held them up." I left the keys on the kitchen counter next to Belle's roses, already wilting in the July heat, petals curling brown at the edges. Set the unopened champagne bottle beside them. We'd never drink it together now. Walked out into the evening at 8:34 p.m., the sky that purple-orange color summer evenings get in New England. The door closed behind me with a sound like finality, the lock clicking into place like a period at the end of a sentence I'd never wanted to write. Through the window, I could see Belle on her phone, laughing at something the person on the other end said. Her champagne cork from her solo celebration was still on the floor near the refrigerator, rolling slightly in the breeze from the open window. She'd celebrated without me. Probably started celebrating the moment she'd gotten the exam results, hours before she'd texted me to come home. I used to think betrayal would be loud. Screaming matches and thrown plates and dramatic exits. Turns out sometimes it's just paperwork and champagne and someone telling you you're not enough while they're standing on your shoulders. By the way, if you're still reading this, do me a favor. Subscribe. Hit that button. Most people just scroll past these stories, but this is how I get them out there. Cost you nothing. Cost me 9 years. The Greyhound to Providence left at 11:10 p.m. I bought a ticket with cash and sat in the back, watching Boston disappear through dirty windows. Claire picked me up at the station around 12:30 a.m. Didn't ask questions, just drove me to her house and showed me the guest room. Edmund died 6 weeks later, on September 12th, at 4:23 in the morning. Claire called me from the hospital. He'd had trouble breathing around midnight, she'd said. By the time the ambulance got him to Rhode Island Hospital, his lungs were failing. The Parkinson's had progressed to his respiratory system. He'd gone peacefully, she said, which is what people always say even when it isn't true. The funeral was small. 14 people in a chapel that could hold 200. Edmund's few remaining friends, some neighbors from the old house in Cranston he'd sold when he moved in with us, Claire's family. Belle didn't come. She texted Claire at 9:47 a.m. on the morning of the service. "I'm sorry for your loss. I'm in the middle of interviews and can't get away. Claire showed me the text in the church parking lot, her hands shaking. Not from Parkinson's, from rage. Then she deleted it without responding, her jaw set in a line that reminded me of Edmund when he'd still been able to show anger. She was always like this, Claire said quietly. We were standing in the funeral home afterward, looking at Edmund in his casket. They'd done a good job with the makeup, made him look almost healthy, though his hands were still curled in that characteristic Parkinson's position. Even as a girl, she'd use her cousins for homework help, then drop them when she made it to better schools. Edmund saw it. He knew. When he was still living alone in Cranston, before he got too sick to manage by himself, he told me he was grateful you called him every Sunday. Said Belle had stopped visiting months before that. Just stopped coming by. Too busy with her thesis, too busy with networking events, too busy building her future. You were the one who checked on him, who noticed when he started having trouble. That's why he agreed to move in with you too. He trusted you, not her. I hadn't known Edmund had told her that. Hadn't known he'd noticed. That night, sitting in Claire's kitchen, I did the math. My savings account had $3,200. In 6 weeks, I'd spent $600 on helping Claire with funeral expenses and Edmund's remaining medical bills. I had $2,600 to my name, no apartment, and a job I'd left without notice. I should have felt destroyed. Should have felt like the foundation Belle said I was. Cracked, crumbling, crushed under weight I'd never agreed to carry. Instead, I felt something colder. Something like clarity. I called Harrison Boyd the next morning. We'd worked together 3 years ago before he left to start his own consulting practice, structural engineering for small developers. I'd helped him proofread his first client contracts, reviewed his liability insurance, the kind of detail work nobody thinks about until it costs them. Harrison, I said, you still need help with that Providence warehouse conversion? Tom? Yeah, why? You need help with CAD work, code compliance, permit filings. I'll do it for equity. I don't need salary yet. Silence on the line. Then, you serious? Because I could use someone who actually knows what they're doing with building codes. But equity? That's risky for you. 3%, I said. 6 months. If it works out, we renegotiate. Deal. When can you start? Tomorrow. I moved into a tiny studio in Federal Hill that cost $850 a month. Walked to Harrison's office every morning. Spent my days reviewing structural drawings, checking load calculations, making sure every permit application was perfect. 6 weeks in, Harrison got a call from the warehouse developer, Margaret Chen. She was panicking, her voice high and tight over the speakerphone. The structural engineer she'd hired before Harrison had miscalculated load-bearing requirements for the second-floor renovation. The city inspector had red-tagged the whole project. $300,000 in construction already invested. Financing deadline in 6 weeks. If she missed it, the bank would pull out and she'd lose everything. I need someone who actually knows what they're doing, Margaret said. Not someone who's going to blow smoke. I need to know if this project is salvageable or if I should cut my losses. I spent 2 days reviewing the plans, sleeping maybe 4 hours total. Spread the architectural drawings across Harrison's conference table, cross-referenced them with Boston's building codes, checked every calculation 3 times. Found the error on page 32. The original engineer had calculated dead load, but hadn't properly accounted for live load requirements for commercial occupancy. Found 3 more potential problems the first engineer had missed: fire separation issues between the first and second floors, inadequate emergency egress from the north wing, and ventilation requirements for the planned restaurant space that weren't met by the existing HVAC system. But it was fixable. All of it. The bones of the building were sound. The problems were in the execution, not the structure itself. I rewrote the structural analysis over a weekend. 47 pages. Detailed calculations showing exactly how we'd fix everything. Submitted it to the city Monday morning with a cover letter explaining the corrections and requesting reinspection. Margaret showed up at Harrison's office the following Thursday. Mid-50s, sharp eyes that missed nothing, wearing construction boots that had actually seen job sites, not the clean costume version some developers wore for photo ops. There was cement dust on her jeans. She'd been on site that morning. "Which one of you is right?" she asked. I raised my hand from the conference table where I was reviewing another set of plans. "You just saved me $85,000 in redesign costs and kept me from missing my financing deadline." She pulled out a business card, Wrote her personal cell number on the back in quick, decisive handwriting. I don't know what Harrison's paying you, but it's not enough. You need cards. You need to be consulting on every project I do. What's your rate? I didn't have cards. Didn't have a rate. I had a backpack and a father's compass and the slow, cold certainty that the person I'd been was gone. What was building in its place, I didn't know yet. But it was hungry, and it was patient. I'll work it out with Harrison, I said. But I'm available. Good. Because I've got 3 more projects that need someone who actually reads the code instead of guessing. Harrison increased my equity to 7% after the first year. I took it and kept working. Meanwhile, Belle was ascending. I didn't check her social media, didn't search for her name. But Providence isn't far from Boston. Sometimes her face appeared in architecture publications Claire left around the house. Belle Montgomery, associate at Whitmore & Associates. Belle Montgomery speaking at the Boston Society of Architects. Her LinkedIn profile, which I saw exactly once when Margaret accidentally pulled it up during a meeting, said, self-made architect passionate about sustainable design. Built from ground zero. Ground zero. That's what she called the foundation I'd laid. By year 2, Harrison's firm had grown to 6 people. My equity was 15%. He'd increased it voluntarily after we landed a contract I'd helped negotiate, a mixed-use development that required navigating Boston's Byzantine historic preservation codes. That's when I became director of code compliance and consulting. Lived in the same studio. Banked everything else. My side consulting grew. 12 developers and 3 architectural firms used my services. I had a reputation. The guy who finds problems before inspectors do. I never raised my voice. Never filed a complaint. Never mentioned Belle's name. Because this wasn't revenge. Revenge implies emotion. This was engineering. In April of 2016, 9 months after the divorce, Belle threw a party at Lynx, a rooftop bar in Back Bay with glass walls and a view of the Charles River that cost extra just to reserve. 9 months licensed, the invitation said, posted publicly on Facebook and Instagram, proud and loud. Professional networking event, but really a celebration of Belle. Her ascension, her achievement, her self-made success. I wasn't there, but Jeremy Foster was. Jeremy worked at a Providence architecture firm, D'Annunzio and Associates. We'd collaborated on a mixed-use project in Federal Hill, an old mill building converted to lofts. Good architect, detail-oriented, someone who understood that work matters more than image. Someone who showed up at job sites to check his designs against reality instead of assuming contractors would figure it out. Jeremy sent me a message the next morning at 7:43 a.m. Thought you should know how she talks about you. This was last night. I'm sorry, man. Attached was a video. 43 seconds long. Shot from across a high-top table, the kind of casual angle that says the person recording is pretending to check their phone. Belle was in the center of the frame, wearing a black cocktail dress I'd never seen, her hair styled in waves that must have taken hours. 3 empty cocktail glasses on the table in front of her. Her face flushed from alcohol and attention. A woman with red hair I didn't recognize was asking, "How'd you do it?" Architecture school is brutal. Everyone I know who made it through had family money or wealthy spouses or something. Did you have family support? Belle laughed. The sound was bright and careless. I had support when I needed it. My ex-husband was basically a foundation. You know, in building terms. Solid, stable, load-bearing. The thing you pour first so you can build something beautiful on top. But foundations are meant to be built on, not lived with. You don't live in the foundation. He served his purpose. The table laughed. 6 people I didn't know, young professionals in expensive clothes, networking their way up. Someone said, "That's cold, Belle." Belle smiled. Took a sip from a fresh drink someone had brought her. That's strategic. You can't let sentiment hold you back. He was a good man, really. Perfect for what I needed then. But I needed someone who could match where I was going. An architect needs another architect, not an engineer who's happy running calculations. More laughter. The video ended. I watched it once in my kitchen in Federal Hill, standing at the counter, coffee growing cold in my hand. Watched her smile. Watched her reduce 9 years to a punchline. Watched her friends laugh at the idea of me. Then I saved it. Created a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence. Added the video with timestamp and metadata. Named it Foundation_speech_April_2016. MP4. Then I went back to work. Words are evidence. Evidence has timing. By 2018, Harrison's firm was acquired. My 15% converted to $340,000. I invested it immediately. Equity stakes in 3 early-stage real estate development projects. Silent partner. No public profile. I rebranded my consulting, Right Development Advisory. Now I advised on entire projects. Feasibility studies, code compliance, contractor selection, permit strategy. The boring technical work that makes or breaks developments. Margaret Chin started her Boston expansion that June. Needed local permit expertise. I'd spent 3 years building relationships with city officials, learning the informal rules that never get written down, understanding which inspectors care about which codes. Tom, Margaret said over coffee in her Providence office. I'm going into Boston. Dorchester, Roxbury. Adaptive reuse. Residential conversions. I need someone who knows the city inside and out. I can help, I said. I want you in for 8% equity. Real partnership. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Deal. By 2019, I had equity in 6 active projects. My consulting brought in $180,000 a year. I still lived in the same 850 studio. Bell, meanwhile, made junior partner at Whitmore in December 2018. Got engaged to Preston Blake, a senior partner at a competing firm, in May 2019. They married that September at the Ocean House in Watch Hill. The ceremony photos flooded social media. Belle in white, looking like she'd always been heading toward this life, like the 9 years with me were just some unfortunate detour. Her Instagram caption, "Built my dream career, now building my dream life." No mention of the foundation that made any of it possible. The pandemic hit in March 2020. Most developers panicked. I got busier. Projects pivoted to residential conversions, office space repurposing. I advised on 4 major adaptation projects. My equity stakes grew to 9 projects. Margaret invited me to join her company's board as an external advisor. I want your name on the letterhead, she said. Just list me as external counsel, I said. Keep it quiet. She looked at me strangely. Tom, you've been essential to every project we've done for 3 years. You should take credit. Credit makes you visible. Visible makes you vulnerable. I stayed in the shadows. Let the work speak. Bell's firm laid her off in November 2020. Whitmore was cutting costs. She launched Montgomery Design Studio in January 2021. Solo practice. Her social media exploded with posts about resilience, rising from adversity, building something from nothing. From nothing. I focused on Boston full-time by 2021. Advised on 12 active projects. Established Right Capital Partners, a small fund investing in adaptive reuse. 2.4 million under management. Still no website. No social media. No public profile. All business through referrals and quiet relationships. In spring 2021, the Boston Redevelopment Authority announced a new affordable housing initiative. Required partnerships between developers and architects. Strict compliance requirements. Historic preservation rules. I saw an opportunity. 3 connected properties in Jamaica Plain. Former industrial buildings. Perfect for mixed-income housing. I formed an LLC, Commonwealth Adaptive Holdings. Me, 25%. Margaret Chun, 35%. 2 other developers I'd worked with, 40%. We needed an architectural partner for the BRA application. Margaret said, we need someone with city visibility. What about Montgomery Design Studio? Bell Montgomery's been pursuing this kind of work. Young, local, good profile for our application. I sipped my coffee. Let's review her firm's qualifications. She's perfect, Tom. Exactly what we need. I didn't tell her. Didn't say, that's my ex-wife. Didn't say, she called me a foundation she built on. Didn't say anything except, if you think she's the right fit, send her the RFP. Bell's firm was struggling by early 2022. 3 employees. Inconsistent work. She needed this contract desperately. She submitted a strong proposal. Good design. Understood historic preservation. The RFP documents had listed me as T. Right, technical advisor. Common name. She probably saw it and never made the connection. Why would she? Last she knew, I was a project coordinator who'd never amount to anything. The selection committee voted to hire Montgomery Design Studio in May 2022. Contract, $280,000 in design fees. I wasn't on the selection committee. I was technical advisor. I reviewed code compliance. I attended monthly meetings. I didn't influence Belle's hiring, but I didn't stop it either. The kickoff meeting was scheduled for June 14th, 2022, 9:03 a.m. Margaret's office in the financial district. I arrived early, reviewed the agenda, poured coffee. Belle walked in at 8:57, wearing a navy suit and an expression of confident professionalism that faltered the moment she saw me. Her mouth opened slightly, closed, opened again. "Good morning," I said evenly. "Shall we begin?" She managed. "Tom? I didn't know you." She stopped, looked at the agenda, saw my name. T. Right Capital Partners, Technical Review. Margaret entered behind Belle, smiling. "Oh good, you two have met. Tom's our secret weapon. He saved us from about 20 different disasters. Belle, you'll be working closely with him on code compliance." Belle's face went through several expressions. Confusion, recognition, something that might have been fear. "I look forward to collaborating," I said. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Belle stumbled through her presentation, kept glancing at me like I might interrupt. I didn't. Just took notes, asked technical questions, stayed completely professional. After the meeting, I heard Belle ask Margaret in the hallway, "How long has Tom, Mr. Wright, been involved with your company?" Margaret laughed. "Tom, 3 years. Best in the business. Why? Did you two know each other?" I'm just surprised. I didn't know he was in development." "He's not just in development. He's the reason half these projects work. Quiet genius." I packed my laptop and left through the side door. That night, I imagined Belle went home and searched my name. Found it attached to 15 major Boston projects. Found my equity stakes, my board positions, my advisory roles. 7 years. That's how long I'd been building in the same city, same industry, same networks. 7 years while she was posting about being self-made. The project launched. I attended monthly reviews. Always professional. Always helpful. Never personal. Belle submitted the 60% design documents in February 2024. I reviewed them as technical advisor. I found a critical error on page 47. The load calculations didn't account for historic preservation requirements. The building codes prohibited adding steel reinforcement to the existing brick structure. Her design would require complete structural redesign or a BRA waiver, which was unlikely to be granted. I wrote a technical memo, kept it factual, cited specific code sections, copied the committee. Belle's firm had to halt work for 6 weeks. The revisions cost her $40,000 in additional consultant fees. She called me on February 28th at 3:15 p.m. "You're doing this on purpose," she said. "No greeting. You're sabotaging me." "I'm doing my job," I replied calmly. "The design didn't meet code. Would you prefer the city rejected it? This is about us. About revenge. There is no us, Belle. There's a project that needs to meet regulations. That's all. I can't believe you're this petty after 9 years." "I'm not being petty. I'm being thorough. If you'd prefer different technical oversight, you can request that from Margaret." I hung up. Belle tried to get me removed from the project. Margaret refused. "Absolutely not. Tom saved us from 3 disasters already. Why would you want him gone?" "We have history," Belle said. "Personal conflict of interest. Unless he's shown bias in his technical reviews, I don't see the issue. Has he?" Belle couldn't cite any bias. Just her own errors that I'd caught. Margaret said no. In April 2024, Belle spoke at the Boston Society of Architects Spring Conference. Panel on Adaptive Reuse in Historic Districts. Margaret attended. After Belle's talk, at the networking reception, a young architect approached her. "You're kind of a legend. I heard you gave a great talk at BAC about building from nothing despite having no support." Jeremy Foster, who'd sent me that video 8 years ago, was standing nearby. He worked with me regularly now, consulting on Providence projects. Jeremy said to the young architect, "Actually, Belle had significant support. Her ex-husband funded her entire education and cared for her father while she studied." Belle's face went pale. "That's ancient history and not relevant." "It's relevant if you're claiming you built from nothing," Jeremy said quietly. "Some of us remember what foundation you were standing on." Tom Wright's one of the most respected technical advisors in the region. While you were posting about building from scratch, he was actually doing it. Margaret overheard. Asked Jeremy about it later. Jeremy showed her the video from 2016. Belle calling me a foundation, saying I served my purpose. Margaret watched it twice. She didn't tell me. She knew I'd want her to handle it as a business decision, not make it personal. She respected my professionalism enough not to drag me into the drama. But I heard the change in her voice at the next meeting. Slight, careful, protective. In May, Bell submitted revised design documents. I found another issue. Fire egress didn't meet current code. I sent a technical memo with corrections needed. Bell responded via email, copying the committee. This is the third issue you've found. At some point, we have to ask if you're actually doing technical review or settling personal scores. Perhaps someone with less conflict of interest should review. I replied within an hour, copying everyone. Ms. Montgomery, I understand you're frustrated with the revision process. Code compliance isn't personal, it's regulatory. Each issue I've flagged has been documented with specific code citations and BRA requirements. If you'd like third-party verification, the committee can hire an independent reviewer. I'm happy to provide all my technical memos for their assessment. However, I should note that questioning a technical reviewer's impartiality without evidence of bias could be seen as deflecting from design errors. I remain available to help your team meet code requirements. The BRA liaison responded to all. Mr. Wright's reviews have been exemplary and consistent with our requirements. We see no need for additional oversight. Bell had just made herself look incompetent. By July 2024, the project was 4 months behind schedule. All Bell's revisions. The committee met to assess whether to continue with Montgomery Design Studio. Margaret played the video for them, the one from 2016. She called her ex-husband a foundation who served his purpose? One developer said. That ex-husband, Margaret said quietly, is Tom Wright, our technical advisor. Silence around the table. The second developer leaned forward. So she publicly mocked the man who supported her education, then landed a contract he's overseeing. Did she disclose the relationship? They pulled Bell's original contract application. Question 7. Do you have any personal or professional relationships with project stakeholders that could constitute conflicts of interest? Bell's answer. None. But the initial RFP had listed T. Wright as technical advisor. Bell had seen my name when she prepared her proposal. She'd made a calculation. T. Wright was a common name. She gambled I wouldn't make it an issue, that I'd stay silent like I had for 7 years. When she saw me in that first meeting, she knew the gamble had failed. But by then, she'd already signed a contract application that asked about conflicts. She'd already lied in writing. They found notes from Margaret's June 2022 conversation with Bell. Margaret had written. Bell seemed surprised Tom Wright was involved. Asked how long he'd been working with us. That proved Bell recognized me, but didn't formally disclose. The committee voted on August 7th. 3-0 to terminate Montgomery Design Studio's contract for cause. Failure to disclose conflict of interest. Schedule delays. Failure to meet professional standards. Bell lost $140,000 in remaining fees. Word spread in Boston's architectural community. Not publicly, but the way these things do. Whispers. Conference conversations. Firms quietly removing her from bid lists. Bell's marriage dissolved. Preston filed for divorce in September. Montgomery Design Studio lost its 2 other clients. Bell was forced to close the firm in October. Laid off her 3 employees. Her LinkedIn bio changed. Removed self-made. Removed built from nothing. The speaking engagement stopped. On October 15, 2024, Bell received a manila envelope at her apartment. She'd had to move, couldn't afford Back Bay anymore. A smaller place in Alston. 1 bedroom. Street parking. No return address. Postmarked Providence. Inside was our divorce papers from July 2015. The original copies. Pages slightly yellowed. My signature still visible on page 4. Below my signature, in black ink, new handwriting. Foundations don't move backward. They shift, settle, and support new structures. You're welcome for the education. Be careful what you build on. No signature. I imagine Bell sitting in that apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes, holding those papers. I imagine her understanding, finally, what had happened. I didn't sabotage her. I just stopped saving her. Every error I found was real. Every code violation legitimate. Every technical review accurate. I wasn't the obstacle. I was just the person who refused to be her foundation anymore. And by not disclosing our history when she saw my name on that project, by gambling that I'd stay silent, She'd built her collapse into the very contract she signed. That same evening, Margaret texted me. Belle's firm officially closed today. Feel weird about it? I looked at the message. Thought about Edmund dying alone because his daughter was too busy with interviews. Thought about 9 years. Thought about being called a foundation like it was an insult. I texted back. I feel the same way I felt in 2015. Ready to work. I closed my laptop. Looked at my father's compass on the desk, the only thing I'd taken from that marriage. She called me a foundation. She was right. Foundations don't chase. They stay buried, stay silent, and hold up whatever's built on them. Unless you build something faulty, then gravity does the rest. The Commonwealth Adaptive Project continued with a new architectural firm. Margaret offered me increased equity, 30%. I accepted but stayed quiet. No victory lap. No press. No social media. Just work. Because here's what I learned in 9 years. Belle thought power was loud. Credentials and LinkedIn posts and speaking gigs and telling everyone how you climbed. Real power is silent. It's equity stakes nobody knows you have. It's relationships built over years, not months. It's being the person developers call when they're scared, when they need someone who finds solutions instead of making problems. Belle built her career on top of me and thought I'd stay buried. But foundations don't stay buried forever. They shift. They settle. And eventually, if you've built on something rotten, something unstable, something you took for granted, everything above comes down. Not because the foundation moved, because it stopped holding you up. I'm still in Providence. Still in the same studio, though I could afford something better now. Still working on developments. Still finding the problems no one else sees. Still carrying my father's compass. Still silent. Because silence, when used right, isn't weakness. It's the sound of foundations shifting under people who forgot what they were standing on. And by the time they hear it, by the time they feel the ground moving beneath them, it's already too late. The structure's already falling. You're just watching gravity finish the work. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.
기다 대기하고 있어. 지금 가지 마. 지금 가지 마. 아이, 오자마 혼나. 떼찌한다. 지금 큰일 났는데 세팅이 제대로 다 끝났는데? 예, 세팅이 안 돼서 어떻게 할 수가 없는데 저거는 다 털렸는데.
나 한번 전화해봐. 언제 되는지.
30분에요? 아, 오케이. 30분에 오시면 돼. 그럼 되겠다. 8시 반에. 여기. 가지 마요, 동수 누나 지금 또 큰일 났는데요?
네.
이제 안 본다고 또.
네.
예? 몰라요.
모르는 게 뭐 이유가 있을까?
나 얘기를 해줘. 아, 쉬고 온다고? 그게 그거지. 는 잠깐 쉬어도 돼. 너무 힘들면 이쪽에 있죠. 아, 수장님이 랑 같이 왔어요. 근데 지금 세팅하러 지금 저거 한다고. 나 어제 두 병밖에 안 먹었는데. 저 우선 대기합시다. 지금 털렸어. 에? 언제 쓰냐고요? 언제 쓰냐고 무슨 말이야? 고라니 탔어? TV 다쳤어? 하도 그렇지 뭐. 왜 다쳤어 또? 조심해 임마. 지금 이거 뽑으러 왔어요? LG 형. 지금. 저희는 언제 쉬냐고. 저희는 쉬는 게 없어요.